Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1011. Linked Room Maidservant. How would young Master Jun know the Miao Xiao Miao was precisely feeling embarrassed over yesterday's matter? She had practically thrown away her face and disregarded her status as a girl, boldly confessing her love and even forcing the other party to accept. After seeing him again after that, how could she not be embarrassed? Although it was because they'd gone through a great tribulation of life and death, and her emotions had been very charged, resulting in her confession, but when she thought of it now, she could still feel chills traveling down her spine. Before she came here today, she was still thinking to herself what she would do when she saw him. But after she arrived, she only discovered that he'd gone missing. In her panic and worry, she'd completely forgotten about her earlier thoughts. When she saw him standing safely before her now, she only felt a sense of happiness washing over her. Seeing this pair smiling faintly at each other, with the girl being so shy that she couldn't lift her head, twirling her feet on the ground and clutching her dress tightly, Chao Guofeng and the rest exchanged a glance and smiled bitterly. At this time, could it be that old men like them could still remain standing there? If they still didn't go, they would only become 7 huge light bulbs for these two. This situation was a little unsuitable for disciplining their disciple. Without anyone to remind him, Chao Guofeng shook his head and waved his hands helplessly, not knowing if he should laugh or cry. All right. Let's go. Let's go. There's nothing to see here. Everyone just continue whatever you were doing. The bunch of old fellows simply smiled and sighed bitterly as they left. And like this, they dispersed. The weather today is not bad. The sun is really big. Jun Moxie laughed awkwardly and said as he looked at her not speaking. And, the weather is pretty good. The sun is really big. Miao Xiao Miao finally spoke. However, her words were no less idiotic. Thereafter, the two fell into another period of awkward silence. Right. Look at this. The sun is high in the sky. And the weather is clear. In a moment, the moon will come out. Jun Moxie raised his head and realized awkwardly that it was nearly dusk now, and the sun had already nearly disappeared. And, the moon's rays shining on the body is also very warm and nice. Miao Xiao Miao felt her body growing hot. She did not lift her head, and simply mumbled incoherently. Pooh. Little Beansprout, who had been watching at the side, finally could not endure, and burst out laughing. The sun has already set. Would there be a nice and bright sun in the sky? Although there wasn't any sun left. Had the moon even appeared yet? Also, could the moon's rays feel nice and warm? This miss of hers was truly talented. As talented as young Master Mo. The two of them are truly a match made in heaven. Her sudden laughter managed to break the awkward atmosphere. Miao Xiao Miao finally realized what she had said, and her face grew even redder. With a faint whimper, she hid her face and ran. Seeing this, Little Beansprout cried out in an amused manner. Miss, you're going in the wrong direction. The door is the other way. That direction seems to be young Master Mo's room. Are you going inside there? Miao Xiao Miao instantly froze. Advancing was not correct, and retreating was not right either. In that moment, she was stuck, and she didn't know what to do, nearly crying aloud. What's the matter? Jun Moxie rolled his eyes and said. Is my room that hideous? I'm not hiding anything in there. Besides, the score for the Song of the Burial of Flowers is in my room. Miss Meow is going in the right direction if she wants to retrieve them. Little Beansprout stuck her tongue out cheekily and made a face, teasing. I was in the wrong. You're going in the right direction. Aren't you going into young Master Mo's room? I was speaking nonsense again. Young Master Jun flung his sleeves and walked into his own room with wide steps. Miss Meow is truly passionate about music. If I knew that you were coming, I would have tidied up the room first. If Miss Meow does not mind the simple setting, why don't you come in and take a seat? After receiving Jun Moxie's invitation and having a good reason, Meow Xiao Meow's predicament was greatly reduced. Nodding her head, she smiled. I'll be troubling young Master Mo then. Only then did she walk in with small steps. However, she did not dare to lift her head all the way, and could only stare at Jun Moxie's moving feet. Little Beansprout naturally followed in. Jun Moxie was leading the way in front, when he suddenly heard Little Beansprout screeching at the back, begging for mercy. Miss, please spare me. Miss. I will not dare to in the future. At the most, I won't follow you in. You can do whatever you want and no one will look. Kakik, spare me. Turning his head, he saw Little Beansprout giggling and escaping, yet being caught by Meow Xiao Meow. She was begging for forgiveness, but it seemed more like she was teasing her miss. The master and subordinate relationship between you two is pretty good, Jun Moxie said with a heartfelt sigh. Although most young ladies of large families were usually quite close to their personal maids, there would inevitably be a bit of power distance. The maid would never dare to be too presumptuous, and a relationship as close as sisters like Meow Xiao Meow and Little Beansprout was incredibly rare. Especially in a huge and powerful family like the Meow family, this was an especially uncommon and precious sight. Jun Moxie could tell that Meow Xiao Meow was definitely not pretending to be magnanimous to put on a show for him. Only when the relationship was deep enough could they tease each other like this. Jun Moxie did not doubt in the slightest that even though Little Beansprout was so casual with Meow Xiao Meow, if there was any danger, she would not hesitate to lay her life down for Meow Xiao Meow. I've embarrassed myself. Although Little Beansprout is my maiden name, I've always treated her as my younger sister. There are no secrets between the two of us. Hearing Jun Moxie's light sigh, Meow Xiao Meow smiled lightly, her eyes filled with pity that she could not conceal. Her birth, in any case, I treasure her very much. When Little Beansprout was mentioned, Meow Xiao Meow's expression became much more at ease. But when it came to Little Beansprout's birth, she hesitated. It was not because she was trying to help her keep the secret, but she was thinking for Little Beansprout, not wanting to open the wound in her heart and letting her be hurt again. Miss. Little Beansprout looked at Meow Xiao Meow as her eyes turned red. To be able to meet Miss is the greatest fortune of my life. Silly lass. I cannot accompany you forever. In the future, you will naturally meet the fated person whom you will spend your life with. That will be the true fortune of your life. Meow Xiao Meow sighed and said, I only hope that no matter when, you will not forget me. Little Beansprout will only follow Miss in this life. I don't want any fated person. Little Beansprout immediately started tearing up. In return, Meow Xiao Meow's eyes also reddened. Seeing that the atmosphere had turned sad because of a single sentence for him, Jun Moxie rubbed his nose awkwardly. Women are really strange creatures. Just a single sentence and the both of them are already crying together. What emotional creatures. There was no helping it. In order to break this sad atmosphere, Jun Moxie joked. Oh. You will never part with your lady? Then. Little Beansprout. Won't you become our linked room maidservant 1? Little Beansprout's rosy cheeks instantly became flushed with red and she blinked repeatedly, not knowing what to say. After stammering for a moment, she turned around and said in a shy manner, Young Master M.O., you're a big baddie. Meow Xiao Meow's face also turned red. If it was anyone else who said this, with Little Beansprout's brash personality, she would definitely retaliate fiercely on the spot. But since it was Jun Moxie, she instead grew shy. Because this Mo Jun Xie was her young Mrs. Lover. So if she became her young Mrs. Linked Room maidservant, it would also mean that she would have to serve him this matter. Seeing Little Beansprout's predicament, Meow Xiao Meow snorted. We haven't even checked if our 8 characters are suited yet, and you're already dreaming of a linked room maidservant? Young Master Mo, your ambition is not little. Young Lady Meow's original intention was just to help Little Beansprout out. But only after speaking did she realize that her words were somewhat inappropriate. The words themselves were not wrong, but the timing in which it was said was quite off. By saying those words, wasn't she already declaring her position as his wife? So when she was only halfway through her words, she found that she suddenly could not continue, and her face was flushed pink. Truthfully, Jun Moxie was also regretting his words internally. Although he meant well with his words, it was also quite inappropriate. Strictly speaking, his words were in the style of a rascally perverted manner, and he'd already made the mental preparations to be ruthlessly scolded. But who would have thought that this young Lady Meow would continue the sentence in such a way? Stunned, he fell silent for a long time before shifting his eyes uncomfortably. Looks like the relationship of you 2 sisters are really close. He didn't finish the sentence, but it still left much to be thought. Because in this moment, he could not help but to think of something. The good relationship between this master and servant pair was naturally a good thing and could even be said to be a distinctive merit of Meow Xiao Meow's character. With the declining morality of the current world, how many people would truly treat their servant as their own sister? But from another angle, assuming that she was really determined to marry him, this would be another huge disastrous matter. This would be a huge factor that would result in the instability of his harem. Dugu Xiao Yi, Guan Qing Han, Mei Shui Yan, which one of these were people who were easy to provoke? If Meow Xiao Meow really followed him, given the close sisterhood relationship between the two, it was almost a given that Little Beansprout would follow as a linked room maidservant. At that time, the 2 sisters would definitely join hands to oppose the outside force. But if that happened, it would mean that his harem would never see a day of peace ever again. Which one of those girls was willing to take a loss? If any of them were willing to take a loss, the sun would start rising from the west. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1012. Daughter, give it up. A harem meant that things would always be unfair. Jun Moxie had brought this matter up unintentionally, but it also caused a great alarm in his heart. Haha. Jun Moxie laughed dryly. That was just a joke. Please do not take it to heart. Miss Meow, this is the score you wanted. I've already prepared it. I wonder if Miss Meow wants a set of the lyrics as well. Meow Xiao Meow was somewhat stunned. She still hadn't fully recovered from the sweet feeling when Jun Moxie changed the topic. Those words seemed somewhat strange, but she couldn't tell what was wrong about it. Naturally, Meow Xiao Meow replied subconsciously. Then I shall immediately get on with it. Her. It's just a small task. And not worth mentioning. Jun Moxie smiled casually. For this song of the burial of flowers to land in Mrs. hands, it will surely have a new splendor, the both of you bringing out the best in each other. This little brother can be considered to have fulfilled a little desire of mine." As he said that, he raised the brush in his hand and started to write with great style. The three chatted for a moment longer and Miao Xiao Miao bade her farewell, leaving with the music scores and little Beansprout. However, she still felt as if something was not right, yet she couldn't understand what it was. She only felt that today's Mo Jun Xie was much more distant than yesterday. There was an indescribable reserved feeling that, although was completely hidden, felt exceedingly real. Miao Xiao Miao would rather that she'd sensed wrongly. Why? Why was I still treated with this kind of attitude despite putting down my status as a girl and initiating everything? Why do you treat me like this? Last night, although Miao Xiao Miao had been somewhat forceful in her approach, she had clearly sensed that Mo Jun Xie's heart had definitely been shaken. He wasn't rejecting her completely. He had been moved as well. And that instant of sweetness had kept her heart company the entire night. That was why she'd once again set down her pride as a girl and initiated once again. But this time, she felt that her feelings were very different from her expectations. Why did Mo Jun Xie become so much colder to her even though they'd spent a night braving life and death together? No, that can be. From the start, he'd used her as the reason for him escaping the danger. At that time, she could clearly sense that Jun Xie had not treated her as an outsider. Instead, he'd treated her as one of his own. In that moment, Miao Xiao Miao could clearly sense the satisfaction in her heart. A woman's intuition cannot be wrong. The same intuition told her that the sense of detachment only started after that linked room maidservant joke. From that point on, Mo Jun Xie had clearly become much more distant. But why? What was the reason? Because of a joke, although it could possibly turn into truth in the future, it shouldn't result in such a large change. That was only a joke. But Miao Xiao Miao's instinct was definitely not wrong. Only, the truth was still somewhat different from her guess. Truthfully, even Jun Moxie himself didn't know why he thought that way. As a model youth that had gone through the proper moral education of the modern world, although he'd never received formal education, but the concepts of a single husband and wife family was something that had been deeply ingrained into his bones. A person can love two people, but they would have to go through the painful process of breaking up in order to start a new relationship. But Jun Moxie had forgotten that it had already been some time since he'd transcended over here. This world was one where the strong ruled and the weak knelt. Men were the dominant party in relationships, while women were quiet and subservient. In addition, due to the constant warring, the number of men was much lesser than women, resulting in this society of one man with many wives. And more importantly, it was every man's dream to have lots of women to serve them. Any society's men would all think the same way. Whether a man was successful in life or not, they all wished for the same thing. Jun Moxie was naturally not an exception. In this society where having many wives was perfectly normal, this system perfectly satisfied the desires in all men's hearts. So Jun Moxie basically did not need much time to adjust before he accepted this norm. Perhaps this was also the weakness of all men. And so, it also became the weakness of young Master Jun regardless of whether one was a gentleman or a base person, a saint or a hero. As long as one was a man, all of them thought the same way. The only difference was in whether the man could control himself. That was all. A man who could control himself would be a so-called good man. As for those who couldn't control themselves. But Jun Moxie could not be considered to be a good man in this environment. Or perhaps one should say, he basically never tried to restrain himself. His thoughts in this matter were more in line with the standards of the ancient people, the unity of the harem. This was the most important point for a man of this era to consider. A peaceful and united family would ensure success in every venture. But in this society, the phrase, a peaceful and united harem would ensure success in every venture, would be more apt. Jun Moxie was quite helpless in this regard as well. Feck. The men in this world are already lesser than the women. There are too few tea bags. And too many teacups. What can I do about it? I can only flow according to nature. In any case, I cannot be blamed. Although she'd obtained the song of the burial of flowers, the music score for such a precious song, Miao Xiao Miao's heart was completely not placed on it at all. Her heart was in a state of confusion. Why was he suddenly so cold to me? Could it be that I hadn't expressed myself clearly enough yesterday? What is he saying exactly? Is that considered a rejection? Carrying her heavy emotions, Miao Xiao Miao returned home listlessly. Her mood had already dropped to an extremely low point where she was unwilling to even open her mouth and speak. The keen-eyed mother Miao naturally noticed that her daughter went out happily and returned in a downcast manner. How could she not be worried? As such, she secretly pulled little Beansprout to the side and asked her in detail. But little Beansprout seemed to not understand the situation well, so she was unable to narrate very properly. Helpless, Mother Miao went to her daughter's room to coax her. After using up most of her saliva, she finally got Miao Xiao Miao to start talking in a shy manner. Truthfully, her confused self was also keen to find a person to confide in. And her own mother was naturally the best choice. Miao Xiao Miao hadn't mentioned the crux of the matter yet, but with the close relationship of the mother and daughter duo, Mother Miao still managed to find the truth with her relentless questioning. After understanding the whole situation, Madame Miao sighed bitter and shook her head. Her daughter was indeed still too naive. Although she could be considered very clever and witty, she was still quite clueless in these matters. Mother, what do you think is going on? He's acting so coldly towards me. Does it mean that he's rejecting me? Miao Xiao Miao asked with a red face. She was truly out of ideas this time. Otherwise, she would never ask in such a direct manner. Ai, my poor daughter. Madame Miao didn't know what to say. She was a talented young beauty of her generation back then as well. But with regards to her daughter's situation, she felt somewhat helpless as well. After thinking for a while, she asked, Xiao Miao, you said that when you confessed your feelings to Mo Junyi, he'd been moved in that moment. Yet, he never promised you anything up front, right? That's right. But I'm certain his heart had been moved. Otherwise, I wouldn't have just returned like this. Miao Xiao Miao said in a pitiful manner. Then, Xiao Miao, listen to mother. Give it up. You won't have any happiness following a man like that. Madame Miao sighed and advised seriously. Why? Mother, why would you say that? He's such a good man. Why won't I obtain any happiness? Miao Xiao Miao raised her head with shock. Mother, could it be that you really bear to see me become a tool of the family for creating marriage alliances? Madame Miao shook her head in a forlorn manner. There are no absolutes in this world. Even marrying for the sake of the family doesn't necessarily mean that there would not be any happiness. Take your father and I for example. Wasn't that the case as well? Do you think that we are not happy? No. Miao Xiao Miao cried aloud with shock. Mother, I'm different from you all. The you at that time didn't know anything. But mother, even if you didn't know anything, Could it be you don't have the dreams of a young girl in your heart? This daughter shall ask bravely. How different is father from the man of your dreams? Madame Miao's body shook lightly, but her face remained calm. Dreams, who didn't have those before? But mother's dreams are only fanciful thinking. But my dream now is real. There is indeed such an excellent man in reality. He is my dream. I cannot pretend as if I've never met him before. Furthermore, we've gone through the trials of life and death before, and it was him who tore open my veil. In fact, I've already nearly obtained him. Miao Xiao Miao cried out in an agitated manner. If mother and the family want me to marry another person, I would rather die. Looking at her daughter's tear-stained face and hearing her determined words, Madame Miao sighed heavily with a sense of helplessness. Xiao Miao, when mother said that you would not obtain happiness by following Mo Jun Xie, I did not say it just to scare you. Have you considered before why this Mo Jun Xie is unwilling to accept you? You are a ravishingly beautiful young girl with such a good family background and character. Your cultivation is high, and your intelligence surpass most of your peers. In the future, you will certainly be a great help to him. Even in matters of the family, mother believes that you will certainly be an outstanding and virtuous wife, as well as an excellent mother. Able to stand out in public and excel in the kitchen, whoever marries you will have saved at least 500 years of time struggling to gain a footing in the misty illusory manner. I'm sure Mo Jun Xie is not so blind as to not be able to see this. But why did he still reject you? Why? Could it be that you've never thought of this seriously before? Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1013. A man like this is one of a kind. Madame Miao continued in a heavy tone. In terms of looks, your beauty is on a country-toppling level. Even compared to all the absolute beauties in history until now, my daughter can still stand among the top 10 for sure. In addition, your family background and personal talent is not something common people can match. Even royal princesses of the mundane world have lower statuses than you. Your temperament is also gentle and refined. You are well versed in both the arts and cultivation and are a talent rarely seen in the world. But not only did this man not seize the chance to get close to you, he even rejected your affection. Why is that? Miao Xiao Miao could not help but fall silent in contemplation when she heard this. Although her mother's words were somewhat exaggerated, they were mostly true. With her qualifications, why did Mo Jun Xie still reject her? This was the reason why she was so confused. Mother, just what is the reason? Miao Xiao Miao thought for a long time but was still unable to comprehend the reason. AI, indeed. The person involved is often confused. The reason can be said to be extremely simple. It's right after he cracked that joke. His attitude became cold. Madame Miao said with a heavy sigh. What is going on? How can it be the same reason? Miao Xiao Miao grew anxious. This free and natural physique prodigy already has another person in his heart. Madame Miao said lightly. From what you've said, this Mo Jun Xie is a genius in the literary area, creating beautiful poems and verses with every sentence, each word being deeply touching and timelessly classic. Furthermore, every poem and song he makes is filled with true emotion that is as deep as the ocean. Yet, all those poems are filled with intense longing and unbearable emotion. If those poems were really all composed by him, and there's also the song of the burial of flowers you received today. Madame Miao pointed at the score sheet in Miao Xiao Miao's hands. This song is likely not the work of some girl several hundred years ago. If it is, how come we've never heard of it before? You should know that your mother has been extremely fervent over music for many years. I have confidence that my knowledge of music is not inferior to anyone. But I've truly never heard of such a well-arranged and excellent song before. For the sake of this hobby of mine, how many people have your father sent out over the years to scour the best music? When the song Laughing Proudly in the Pugilistic World appeared in Chrysanthemum City previously, I obtained the entire music score in 3 days. If this was really an old song, there wouldn't be a reason for your mother to not know it. Also, although the melody of this song is excellent, meaning in the song is even more impressive. Apart from the feelings of self-pity and pain, there is also the sorrow of love and departure. Madame Miao sighed heavily. I'm certain that this song is an original composition of Mo Jun Xie. This song was most likely composed for his own remembrance, which was why it had never spread out until now. You should know that if a girl reaches such a point of certain death, she would never write a poem like this. Although this song did not mention anything about the love between a man and woman, but every verse is filled with the sadness of love, as well as the grief of the loss of life and death. If a woman has her lover accompanying her side, even if she dies, it would be a happy and contented death. Why would she leave behind a song like this to torment her lover day and night? The both of us are female. Could it be that we cannot understand the heart of a girl? Miao Xiao Miao's eyes widened with realization. Mother's words indeed make sense. Could it be, this was created after his lover departed? There should be no mistakes about this. Madame Miao nodded. Truthfully, he'd already hinted about this long ago. Remember you said before that he told that musical genius, there are no rivers to one who has crossed the ocean, and no clouds to one who has passed Mount Wu. Unfortunately, you were too enchanted by him and hadn't realized it. Madame Miao sighed and said, Daughter, I'll say it again. Let go. If it's a living person, with my daughter's standard, I'm confident in your abilities. However, against a dead person, even if you're a fairy from the 9 heavens, you will never be able to replace the memory of her in his mind. Even if you forced yourself into his heart, you would only be a substitute, a replacement. If that's really the case, will you be resigned? So he actually has such a painful past. He's so true to his feelings. If I let such a good man pass by so simply, where will I go to find another? Miao Xiao Miao's eyes misted over and she sighed with great heartache. To think that he is actually carrying such pain in his heart. Madame Miao sighed helplessly. Daughter, it's not that mother is trying to pour cold water over you, but you need to know that regardless of men or women, everyone inevitably has a dream in their heart. Even a girl with absolutely no experience will also have a dream, a shadow in her heart, that will never disappear. No matter how cruel or evil a man becomes in the future, or even how incorrigibly perverted. But the first girl to ever enter that man's heart will forever be his goddess. Madame Miao emphasized seriously. Any girl that comes after will likely never be able to replace the first girl. Even if those girls are 10,000 times better. In the heart of the man, the most precious and beautiful will forever be that first love whom he fell head over heels for in his youth. It will be the first girl he ever liked. Not the first girl he ever gets. The same goes for us women. No matter how scheming or loose a girl becomes, no matter how promiscuous she is, whether she works in a brothel or has tasted the lips of 10,000 men, sharing her bed with thousands, her heart will always remember the first man she fell in love with. In front of that man, no matter how many years she spent leading an immoral life, she will still be that shy and innocent girl. Madame Miao's words became heavier. Xiao Miao, do you understand what I'm trying to say? Men and women are essentially the same, Their first and initial innocent love will never be forgotten even if they die. Your situation right now is exactly so. And that Jun Xie obviously belongs to the other side of the coin. His heart had already been given to another. Madame Miao sighed lightly and said, "Do you know why he was hesitant in front of your charms? Even outrightly rejecting you? Because he's scared. He's scared that you will shake the position and the memory of that girl in his heart. He doesn't dare to try. And he doesn't dare to bet." Miao Xiao Miao clenched her little fists and said in a pitiful manner, "But, mother, since he has such a memory in his heart, he's literally suffering day and night in his memories. Wouldn't that be an extremely tiring thing? No one is able to understand him. And he could not confide in anyone. What shall he do then? He's a man with the free and natural physique. So he's destined to have a very long life. Does he have to suffer and be in pain for the rest of his life? Isn't it too heartbreaking? How can I just sit by and watch as he drowns in his sorrows day and night? I have to save him. I have to." Madame Miao was completely stumped. He tongue speechless. She said so much out of concern, in hopes that her daughter would know how to give up. But who would have thought that her words would instead achieve the opposite effect? Miao Xiao Miao's heart was indeed. Looks like there's truly no saving this lass anymore. She may have understood the reason now, but she'd instead fallen deeper into the web of love. Then do you know why he suddenly became so cold today? There's no other reason than the fact that your relationship with little Beansprout is too close. The two of you are practically one set, completely inseparable. The moment you enter his life, it will mean that little Beansprout follows as well. That will definitely turn into a huge threat to the position in his heart, even a challenge for him. Do you understand?" Madame Miao was still trying to put in the final bit of effort to steer her away from these muddy waters. Furthermore, if his first impression was set, then in the future, whenever you and little Beansprout are together, he will always grow suspicious. As long as you and little Beansprout accomplish a certain thing together, he would instead grow repulsed. Following a person like that, what happiness can there be? Daughter, just let go. Don't wait until things are too late before you regret. Could it be that in the entire misty illusory manor, among the 8 great families combined, and the countless small and medium families, there is not be a single person among the sea of geniuses who can compare with Jun Xie? Madame Miao asked exasperatedly, disregarding whether there's anyone who can match up to him. Yi is simply too pitiful. Miao Xiao Miao had already painted Jun Xie as a perfect man of sorrows. Blinking sadly, she continued, "A man like that who could face my beauty and talent with such calmness, and even completely disregard our Miao family's background and reject me. Mother, such a person obviously views riches and power as floating clouds, unflinching in the face of great temptations. Such a person is one who truly places importance on relationships. A truly unique man in this world. Wasn't this how you've been teaching me all along? Now that things have reached this level, have you changed your views? Could it be that you want me to leave such a wondrous man to marry a mediocre, lustful and untalented wastrel of those large families instead? All for the sake of the large power behind them that could provide help for our family? All those so-called talented juniors are all just a bunch of vain losers. Mother, didn't you ask me if there's really no one who can compare with Jun Xie? I will tell you seriously right now. There's really no one who can match him. Those lofty aristocratic disciples are nowhere even comparable to a single toe on his foot." Miao Xiao Miao laughed proudly, seemingly declaring to the heavens as she raised her hands and said in a loud voice, "Because in this world, only he is named Jun Xie. Nobody else is. And I only want him." Mother, don't you think that this name is very cool? Mo Jun Xie. Ink Mo as dark as night. Filled with the noble demeanor of a gentleman Jun, he who is like the night Yi. Miao Xiao Miao giggled in a silly manner. Looking at the look on her daughter's face, Madame Miao sighed heavily with helplessness. She wondered how, with her gentle and composed personality, had she given birth to such a stubborn girl? Wanting to find out the intricacies behind everything. Perhaps, Madame Miao was also too emotionally involved and had forgotten about something very important as well. In her analysis, Mo Jun Xie was a man broken in love. But she hadn't realized that Miao Xiao Miao was actually the same as well. She had fallen in love with the first person who'd caught her fancy. Mo Jun Xie. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1014. Earth-penetrating hand. Frenzied sneak attack. Mother, it's precisely because Jun Xie is a passionate and sentimental man that I like him even more. Miao Xiao Miao's eyes glimmered warmly. It's because I like him that I want to stay by his side. I do not mind being a replacement, as long as it can ease the pain in his heart. So what if I'm just a substitute? I'm not willing to let him continue living like that with a fake smile on his face, putting on a forceful front. If it's like that, even if I'm not by his side, my heart still aches for his sake. Madame Miao looked silently at her daughter and suddenly felt a sharp pang in her heart. If she had the insistence and spirit of her daughter back then. AI. What is the point of thinking about that now? Her life now was already very happy. And her marriage was good. Her daughter was smart and beautiful. So as a woman, what other regrets could she still have in this life? Even if I'm going to suffer by following him, I will still do so willingly. Miao Xiao Miao lifted her chin and looked at the bright moon in the sky as she said in dreamy manner. As long as I can be with him, I will be satisfied. Miao Xiao Miao's voice was resolute, seemingly having made up her mind already. Jun Xie, let me use this life and this tender love to heal the scars in your heart. Madame Miao felt her body sway lightly as she looked at the steadfast look in her daughter's eyes. In that moment, she suddenly felt extremely frail. Her daughter was right in front of her, but she felt so far away. Mo Jun Xie, you've completely stolen my daughter's heart away. Just what kind of a free and natural physique talent is this? Mother, you've said before that everyone, regardless of man or woman, always remembers the first person they ever loved. And Jun Xie is the first person to have ever barged into my heart. Miao Xiao Miao smiled shyly. Mother, I really cannot forget him. I'm afraid that in this life, I will never be able to forget the him who stood before me when I tore off my veil. I suddenly feel that in this life, I've finally found a person whom I can lean on. Mother, this feeling is really very blessed. Miao Xiao Miao looked at her mother with her sparkly eyes. Although Jun Xie's looks are not exactly extraordinarily dashing, but in my eyes, he's a million times better than those handsome young lords of those great families. There's simply no comparison. Madame Miao was completely speechless at this point. Sighing lightly, she walked out. All of a sudden, she seemed to have realized something, and she came to an abrupt stop at the door. Just now you said, you were the one who tore off your own veil last night? He didn't do it. Miao Xiao Miao gasped and froze, her face instantly reddening. She knew that her mother had figured out the truth through her words, and she immediately replied in a soft voice. Mother, it doesn't matter whether it was me who took it off or him. In any case, He's already going to be the only man in this world who's ever seen my true appearance ever since I've grown up. And the veil in my heart has also been opened for him long ago. What difference does it have if I did it personally or not? Madame Miao stood at the door, completely speechless. She simply didn't know what to say at this moment. There was a huge difference between who took the initiative. But after hesitating for a long time, she simply sighed again, not saying another word and leaving directly. She felt as if the number of times she sighed in a single day today was more than all the sighs in her life combined. Mo Jun Xie. I hope you don't let down my daughter's deep feelings for you. Madame Miao looked at the bright moon in the sky and made her final wish. Young Master Jun completely had not expected that single moment of rejection of his would actually create such a complicated series of events. Furthermore, a name that he'd created so randomly actually ended up being admired so greatly as extremely gentlemanly and poetic. One had to say that a woman's imagination was really too amazing. Although the judgment and analysis of the two Miao mother and daughter duo could not be said to be wrong, and truthfully, she'd guessed correctly for most of the things, including that young Master Jun had rejected Miao Xiao Miao because of another girl, even managing to guess the meaning of the Song of the Burial of Flowers. But when all these guesses were added up together, there was a world of difference between the it and the truth. Like the distance between the heavens and the earth and the two opposite poles of the earth. After Miao Xiao Miao left, young Master Jun immediately crawled into bed to sleep. He was a human as well, and humans would all tire eventually. Until now, he hadn't had time for a good rest for a very long time. Furthermore, in the days to come, whether it was dealing with the Zhan family or Chao Guofeng and the rest or the birthday celebration for Miao Jingyun or the entry into the spiritual herbal gardens, all of them were things that required a lot of mental strength to handle. Right now, he got to rest early, also avoiding the questioning of Saint Emperor Chao and the rest. Why would he reject such a good thing? So young Master Jun blew his lamp out with a puff, stripped himself bare in an instant and burrowed into the sheets. Jun Moxie originally did not have the habit of sleeping naked. As an assassin, a skilled assassin naturally needs to have quick reactions to react to any situation at all times. As long as one was human and had a sound mind, they would all have a sense of shame. A matter like fighting naked, was only suitable in the private chambers between a male and a female. If one swung their swords at another man while naked, that pressure was also pretty huge and trying. But ever since young Master Jun learned the yin-yang escape art and could dodge into the Hongjun Pagoda at any time, he gradually changed his habit. He had already prepared quite a large number of clothes in the Hongjun Pagoda. And all of them were full sets. He could go in at any time, entering naked and emerging again fully dressed. This way, would there still be the problem of being caught by surprise? This feeling was simply too luxurious. Thus, young Master Jun gradually fell in love with sleeping nude, this relaxing method of sleep that helped to loosen up the body and mind. Tonight was naturally no exception. However, there were no absolute matters in this world, and things rarely went according to the wishes of people. Take tonight for example. Young Master Jun met with an accident. The night was dark and the bright moon hung high in the sky, casting a silverish radiance upon the land for 10,000 li. The night was silent, and the wind was soft. This was the best time to commit crimes. However, there was an exception to everything. They were still the same words. There were no absolutes in this world. From a certain direction at the bottom of the mountain, a strange black shadow was streaking toward the top of the mountain. The speed of this person was exceedingly quick, but they didn't create the slightest bit of noise in the wind. This person's face was covered in a black mask, and even the rest of his head was wrapped in black cloth, only revealing a pair of cold and deadly eyes. The calmness in this pair of eyes was not the kind that had seen through the vicissitudes of life. Instead, it was the kind that viewed all life as grass. No matter who died or who lived, they were not worth a mention in his heart. His speed was truly extremely quick. It seemed as if a black cloud had appeared far off in the distance, but in the next instance, it had arrived right outside Saint Emperor Chao's courtyard. And this person's cultivation was clearly much higher than Chao Guofeng and the rest. Because the moment he arrived at the yard, the 4 Saint Emperors who were on guard actually did not detect his presence at all. One should know that even if a same-level Saint Emperor arrived, they would be able to sense the presence of the latter from 30 zhang away. But this person had already stepped so close, but they actually didn't feel anything. In the next instant, the black-robed man directly sped forward, without the slightest hesitation. He was like a large black bird, suddenly retracting its wings and diving forward like a sharp arrow. His speed was this fast. Furthermore, the entire process was silent and without commotion. Without switching directions, his body fell like a straight spear, stabbing downwards with shocking speed. Only when he was about to come into contact with the roof, did a loud whooshing sound enough to shake the heavens and earth appear around his body. All the Xian Qi in his body had already coagulated into this one strike. The air around him instantly grew heavy. In that instant, even the moonlight was unable to shine through the area. Spatial lock. And the area that this spatial lock enveloped was actually the entire yard. Such a large-scale spatial lock was something that even Chao Guofeng and the other peak 3rd-level Saint Emperors could never emulate. The instant a real expert showed their hand, nothing else could compare. The strength of this black-robed man had already reached an incomparable level. And the target of this strike was a small room in Chao Guofeng's yard. No matter who looked at it, this was the place with the heaviest defense. The free and natural physique disciple must be staying in there. The power of this strike might not be enough to completely slay a Saint Emperor, but to injure a Saint Emperor, it would not be a problem at all. Especially in a situation where the other was caught off guard. But the main target of this strike was undoubtedly still that prodigy with the free and natural physique. Apart from being capable of injuring a Saint Emperor, this was also an indiscriminate attack. As long as the free and natural physique prodigy was in that room, he would surely die without a shadow of doubt. Even if he was just lightly grazed by the attack, it would still be a hopeless situation. This ruthless assassin using overpowering strength to bully the weak, arriving in the middle of the night to assassinate young Master Jun and the other 7 Saint Emperors, was the Zhan family's Saint Venerable level expert, the earth-penetrating hand, Zhan Xiao. Zhan Luanhui could be said to have invested greatly this time, to send out this peak-level character of the world. With the great calamitous events in the Zhan family happening recently, Zhan Luanhui originally had not planned to eliminate this free and natural physique great prodigy Mo as a number 1 priority. Even if Mo Junyi had the free and natural physique, with shocking potential, it would at least still be impossible for him to reach the level of a peak expert in a short period of time. As long as his strength was still insufficient, he would not be a priority for the Zhan family. However, the deaths of Zhan Qingfeng and Zhan Yushu reminded the Zhan family old ancestor of one very important problem. The Zhan family had been progressing very smoothly all along, but how did it reach such a state today in the blink of an eye? Why did their scheme progress so smoothly for thousands of years, only to completely fall apart now? Was it really a problem of time, fate, and luck? It may be so, or it may not. However, there was a single factor that was linked to all these. If one traced all these matters to its origins, everything had happened because of Mo Jun Xie, this singular huge variable who had suddenly appeared out of nowhere like an accident. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1015. Might of a Saint Venerable. The family had instructed Zhan Qingfeng and Zhan Yushu to scheme against young Master Mo, hoping to gain control over him through this. But ultimately, not only did they fail, they even suffered losses. And precisely because they were reluctant to accept their loss, Zhan Qingfeng and Zhan Yushu instructed their subordinates to assassinate Mo Jun Xie. Everything started from that moment on. If fortune must be mentioned, then the one that had altered the Zhan family's smooth-sailing good fortune was the jinx, Mo Jun Xie. So he must eradicated. Especially during this duration of time, Zhan Luanhui also finally obtained the report that he had wanted to hear the most. At the moment the 6 servants of the Zhan family were about to kill Mo Jun Xie and Miao Xiao Miao, there was suddenly an invincible expert who appeared and used skills only Saint Venerables have sword control technique. This expert killed the 8 people who were present, saving Mo Jun Xie and Miao Xiao Miao. This matter was not a big deal originally. The real problem is that it had only been a day. But the great scheme that the Zhan family had been preparing for thousands of years suffered a cruel hit. Right when it was almost at its end, causing the entire plan to foil completely. Thousands of years' worth of time, the hard work and efforts of generations, countless manpower, sacrifices, everything went up in smoke in a single day. It was similarly done by the expert, whose strength was a profound mystery that had intruded the underground world. First, he killed Zhan Tianji, foiling the great plan of transferring the fortune, ruining the Zhan family's great scheme of thousands years. Then, he caused the death of the 2 juniors of the Zhan family, Zhan Qingfeng and Zhan Yushu. No matter how Zhan Qingfeng and Zhan Yushu looked and they died, Zhan Luanhui absolutely refused to believe that these 2 people were really frightened to their deaths. There was no other reason. The timing and process of these 2 matters were too coincidental. They both died after that mysterious expert had arrived. Drawing a conclusion between the 2 bizarre occurrences that happened within these 2 days, this mysterious expert who wreaked havoc in the Zhan family and that mysterious expert who saved Mo Jun Xie and Miao Xiao Miao began to gradually merge into one in Zhan Luanhui's heart. He could basically confirm that it was one person. Because the Zhan family had dealt with Mo Jun Xie, so he was here for revenge. The reason why Zhan Qingfeng and Zhan Yushu died must be because these 2 brothers of the Zhan family were the main culprits who gave the orders to assassinate Mo Jun Xie. The conclusion Zhan Luanhui had derived was that everything was because of this Mo Jun Xie with the free and natural physique. This mysterious expert greatly valued this Mo Jun Xie. So by killing Mo Jun Xie, that person would emerge again. So the moment Zhan Luanhui got the news of Zhan Qingfeng and Zhan Yushu's death, he immediately gave the order to deal the fatal blow, immediately kill that Mo Jun Xie with the free and natural physique. Zhan Xiao Xiao, who had already taken on this mission, immediately bore the brunt of it and took actions. To Zhan Xiao Xiao, it was not his focus to bully the weak with his strength, and neither was it to lower his own status. The process didn't matter. Only the outcome did. His focus was to give Zhan Luanhui an answer by accomplishing his task. Right now, it was a moment of life and death. Jun Moxie, who was sleeping, suddenly felt an intense threat. And it was a deadly threat. He did not even have time to open his eyes. He instantly escaped into the world of the Hongjun Pagoda. At the same time, A sharp holler shook the entire place. There is an attack. Everyone be careful. The enemy is an expert. In the instant the voice cried out, four unusually dazzling sword lights shot from the four directions on the ground. They were heading from different places, but their target was the same. Like four light pillars that connected heaven and earth, those four sword lights flew towards the man in black. Zhan Xiao Xiao. With a loud boom, all 40 rooms in Chao Guofeng's courtyard collapsed at the same time. Practically every single molecule of air between heaven and earth quaked violently. Dust and smoke began to raise. Countless of debris was sent flying. A giant mushroom cloud flew into the air. It was extremely loud, as if an atomic bomb had gone off. The entire courtyard, along with the small garden outside, were completely destroyed in this single blow. The might of a Saint Venerable's single strike was this powerful. Amidst the dust and smoke, there was angry hollering. 3 other bright sword lights sliced through the air. Chao Guofeng, Bai Chi Feng and the rest flew forward and joined the other 4. The 7 Saint Emperors struck at the same time at full force. Their target was that black-robed man hovering in the air. The 7 Saint Emperors joined forces, swearing to kill this person. Right now, the anger in the hearts of these 7 people had already reached its limit. Especially the later trio, who was originally resting in the room. If not for them being on high alert these couple of days, using mediation as a substitute for sleeping at night to get some rest, they would have already died from this sudden and random fatal attack. With this irrefutable cognition, these 7 people were furious. What sort of enmity do we have to require such a vicious way of attacking? Especially Chao Guofeng. Aside from his lingering trepidation, he was glad. Thank goodness. Luckily, Jun Yi was forcefully insisted to be arranged in the row of rooms along the side of the wall. Otherwise, if he was still in this one here as he was originally, with his meager strength, how could he survive? Seeing the 7 chilling swords flying towards himself at rapid speed, the black-robed man seemed to not have the slightest concern. He scoffed coldly and suddenly swirled in the air. Then, 7 black palms appeared distinctly in the air. He took the blow with his bare hands. Bang! A series of sounds of the chi clashing rang out. After an exchange of blows, that black-robed man did a backflip and flipped backwards higher into the air. His clothes flapped in the wind while the 7 Saint Emperors all went crashing into the ground simultaneously. The joint strength of the 7 of them was just on par with that person. This person is strong. He is definitely a Saint Venerable expert. Even though there are 7 of us, we may not stand a chance of victory. While Chao Guofeng was falling down, he made the most logical decision in his mind. Since we cannot overpower the enemy, then we can only keep defending with all our might until backup or help arrives. The moment there is an opportunity, we must immediately bring Mo Jun Xie away. The room he is in is still within the area that will be affected by our battle. His life is in danger. This person's target is definitely Mo Jun Xie. Bai Chi Feng also had the same thought. They weren't the only 2 who thought of this. In fact, the 5 other Saint Emperors had the same thought. The 7 Saint Emperors exchanged glances, instantly understanding what they were thinking. They also had some sort of mental preparation in the strategy they were about to take in facing the enemy. The courtyard is completely destroyed, and none of the servants managed to escape. Only these 7 people had some sort of capabilities. There is wariness in their expressions, but there is no pain or anguish. Looks like that lad with the free and natural physique has yet to die. Since he is not dead, that means that he is not within this row of rooms that I just destroyed. Then, Zhang Xiao had conquered countless battles throughout his life. He was extremely seasoned and experienced. In the duration he turned in the air, he had already developed this thought. Suddenly, Zhang Xiao stretched his palms forward and began to fly downwards at high speed with a whoosh. An intense and overwhelming gust of palm wind began to rain in all directions of the remaining rubble of the courtyard. Zhang Xiao had barely descended less than 5 zhang when he had already delivered more than 100 strikes that were exactly the same. And the attacks were far from stopping. They were gaining speed and frequency. Bestard. Chao Guofeng and the rest were enraged. The 7 of them instantly abandoned their original plans, appearing at a room that had already collapsed on its side, using all their strength to defend against the enemy's attacks. So that is where the lad is. Zhang Xiao's eyes gleamed as he stretched his arms out and flew downwards. How powerful was the full-strength attack of a Saint Venerable? Although Chao Guofeng and the rest had used all their strength, they still could not resist it. They were slowly falling into defeat. I can't keep waiting like this. If they continue to bear attacks like this, all 7 of them will not make it. Jun Moxie quickly changed into a set of black clothes in the Hongjun Pagoda and dashed out. Young Master Jun could not watch Chao Guofeng and the rest die here for the sake of protecting himself. No matter what. A black figure rapidly flashed past, instantly dashing into the battered room, exiting through the window at the back. As if he were carrying a ball of something from the looks of it. It was like a human body. Then, he shot into the far distance with a whoosh. Before he left a message in an unusually aged voice. Saint Emperor Chao and the rest, do help to hold that person back. This old man shall bring the Mo lad away first. Chao Guofeng and the rest instantly relaxed. Although they did not know who that person was, judging from his skills, he was undoubtedly an impressive expert and his stance is clear. He stood on the same side as them. Since Mo Jun Xie was safe, the 7 of them were relieved and focused all their strength in blocking Zhang Xiao. A Saint Venerable was undoubtedly powerful. Had Chao Guofeng and the rest faced him one-on-one, they would have been dead in a couple of blows. But there were 7 Saint Emperors here. As to Saint Emperors joining forces and working together to deal with Zhang Xiao, while there was indeed no hope of winning, there was no issue in protecting their own lives. How could Zhang Xiao be willing to give up like this? Seeing that this fat piece of meat that was already near his mouth gets snatched away by a mysterious expert. He suffered a hit from the 7th Saint Emperor and howled. Then, he charged up into the skies like a bolt of lightning, rushing 70 zhang high up, becoming a tiny black dot in the night sky. He aborted on the dogfight with the 7 Saint Emperors, and with a fluid turn in the air, he shot into the faraway distance like a meteor. His target had already turned into a tiny black dot, a mysterious black figure that could vanish at any moment. How could Chao Guofeng and the rest be willing to give up? They also gave chase. But they did not dare to separate from each other. It would be a complete tragedy if they separated and that black-robed man suddenly turned back. And on the high mountain in the misty illusory manner, there were already numerous figures rushing over at lightning speed. Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1016. Weird Chase and Flee. 2 black figures flitted across the vast sky, like a meteor catching up with the moon. In a blink of an eye, they entered the dense forest outside the mountain. When the other numerous pursuers caught up, they had already lost sight of where the 2 were headed. When Chao Guofeng and the rest arrived here, Looking at this lush and dense greenery, he couldn't help but sigh and spit out a mouthful of blood. From the battle earlier, an attack had caught him by surprise and caused him to suffer an internal injury. Then, he forcefully endured the attacks that were raining down, which caused injuries upon injury. He had managed to endure it until getting here. But finally, he could no longer suppress the injury and it completely exploded. The might of a Saint Venerable was definitely no small matter. Amidst the crowd of people that had arrived later, an elder donned in green walked out from the crowd and asked, "What exactly is going on?" The one speaking was the manor lord of the misty illusory manor, Miao Jingyun. Bai Chi Feng held back his cough and recounted the entire situation in detail. Thank goodness for manor lord's arrangements in advance. Otherwise, if it were merely the 7 of us brothers alone, tonight would have been a disaster. Miao Jingyun was stunned. A look of confusion was on his face. But I did not arrange for anyone. The moment this sentence was said, the faces of Chao Guofeng and the rest instantly changed. The manor lord would definitely not lie, especially at a time like this. Then, who was that man in black? Give chase. No matter what. We must catch that black-robed man who attacked earlier. This old man also wishes to see who it is. Which family is it to be this bold? To send a Saint Venerable to harm a child? Miao Jingyun ordered in anger. At the same time, his piercing gaze from the corner of his eyes landed on the patriarch of the Zhan family, Zhan Wuyun, who had just arrived. The warning look in his eyes caused Zhan Wuyun to tremble with fear. Miao Jingyun may be stunned by what Bai Chi Feng said, but he was someone who had vast experience and was quick and decisive. On his command, the tens of misty illusory manor experts who came to help entered the dense forest and began to search. These people had the minimum strength of a 4th-level saint. Most of them were saint emperors. There were also Saint Venerables too. Since they could confirm from what Chao Guofeng and the rest that the attacker was a Saint Venerable, if there was someone who wouldn't be a match, then they would just be asking for their asses to get kicked. Jun Moxie had been traveling at full speed, but his killing intent was still losing out. The killing intent was strong, but Jun Moxie was in no rush to strike back. After all, the person chasing him was a Saint Venerable. His powers were shocking and way above himself. It was no easy feat if Jun Moxie intended to kill him. Rashly launching a counterattack would not accomplish anything. So young Master Jun had to bear with it until he found a suitable, ideal location and timing to strike, killing this audacious fellow in a single strike. Speaking of this Saint Venerable behind himself, young Master Jun confirmed that he had never seen him before. When he was at Zhan family, the 2 who had surrounded him were also Saint Venerable experts, but they were unlike this person. But Jun Moxie could confirm that this person definitely came from the Zhan family, and was someone who held a significant position in the Zhan family. It had only been a day. The Zhan family had already deployed someone this important to deal with him. The hatred and anger the Zhan family had towards him was implacable. And they could no longer wait. You don't intend to let me live peacefully? Our stance is clear. And it seems that I've only ruined your secret base. It wasn't much of a kick. For the sake of letting the people around me and myself live peacefully, I can only make the Zhan family experience another huge earthquake. You can die on your own. I'm not joining you. I've learned this logic from a young age. In front, there was a high mountain and the forest was dense and thick. Jun Moxie charged right into it. Zhan Xiao had been battling his entire life. How could he turn timid because of a mere dense forest? From his earlier observation, This mysterious expert who brought away the free and natural physique did have profound strength. But there was still a disparity compared to himself. So he had no fear at all. Naturally, he followed right in as well. With a whoosh, the two of them instantly vanished within this dense forest with nearly a distance of 20 zhang between them. Right now, it was the beginning of summer. The entire place was thick with lush foliage. A person could completely vanish from sight the moment he entered this place. You wouldn't even be able to see his head. What's more, when it was night time right now, Zhan Xiao had high Xian cultivation, so he was able to see things in the dark as if it were in the day. Coupled with his omnipresent strong spiritual sense, he was confident that he would be unconcerned about this hindrance. But the moment he entered the deeper parts of the forest, he instantly detected something amiss. From the chasing process, he could clearly confirm that the mysterious expert was really not more powerful than himself. But his tactics and methods were unusually sly. He definitely was not comparable to Zhan Xiao in terms of speed. But the way he went about escaping was extremely odd. Under most circumstances, he was stronger than the opponent. In the process of giving chase, he just needed to deliver a couple of strikes through the air. Even if he couldn't kill him on the spot, it would definitely be able to delay him. But this person had been running in a peculiar, S-shaped manner. His position was constantly changing and confusing, and even Zhan Xiao's immense spiritual sense couldn't lock on his location. Especially when it came to turning corners, he would suddenly increase in his speed. Before making the turn, Zhan Xiao could clearly close the gap to about 10 zhang. He only needed to work a little harder and he'd catch up. But after they've made the turn, Zhan Xiao would notice that the distance between them had increased by another 80 zhang. And this phenomenon had recurred several times. This is really unusually odd. Now they had both entered the forest. This weird feeling was even more distinct. This mysterious expert was not alone, he was still carrying the boy with the free and natural physique. How did he suddenly vanish without a trace? As if he were a drop of water that fell into the ocean and completely disappeared. How is that possible? The moment one entered a forest this lush and dense, to someone who was proficient at tracking, there should be all sorts of traces left. But this fellow before him did not even touch a single blade of grass. Then where exactly did he escape away from? Zhan Xiao had completely no clue. Left without any choice, he decided to just rush up into the skies and observe from above. Finally, he noticed at about 100 zhang away, there was an area where the foliage was moving about. Although he is highly skilled, he is just trying to display his mediocre skills before an expert. You can forget about escaping from my hands today. Zhan Xiao instantly gave chase in that direction. It didn't take long for the two to appear out of the other side of the dense forest during this chase and flee, then turn into another mountain range and change towards another mountain range. In such a back and forth manner, it seems like we are getting further and further away from the Manor Lord. Zhan Xiao naturally felt more relieved as he pursued. If you are thinking of escaping back, I may still have a couple of qualms, and for the sake of avoiding strong enemies that I cannot win against and maybe expose my own identity, perhaps I'll even let you off the hook. But you, in your panic, chose the wrong way and fled further and further. Then you can only blame your own poor luck. Right now, they were about 2,000 li away from the Manor Lord. There were obviously no other strong experts around here. I, Zhan Xiao, shall be king here. I am the ruler. You think that you will be able to wear me down just with speed? That's just a pipe dream. In a blink of an eye, they passed another few mountains, and they had practically rushed up the highest mountain, then descended at the same time. Below, it was a ravine. And it was full of desolation. There weren't even many trees. It could be said to be a danger spot, but also a natural battlefield. Zhang Xiao landed as quick as lightning. But he halted his steps and stood at that spot, unmoving. Because before him, that person who was dressed almost the same as himself, the black-robed man who had been fleeing the whole time, was also silently waiting over there with his hands behind his back. As if he were specially waiting for him. The most shocking thing was that there was nothing on this person. That human-like object that he had been carrying was already gone. He just stood there like that. As if he did not just flee for 2,000 li. His posture was relaxed, tall and straight, and his breathing was completely steady, with not the slightest sign of trying to catch his breath. Could it be that he was waiting for me? Zhang Xiao suddenly developed this thought. Could it be that not only do I want to kill him, he also intends to kill me? But because the fight between us is not suitable to be seen, so he lured me all the way here. Zhang Xiao was about to burst out laughing from this thought. Out of the whole entire misty illusory manner, how many people are confident in saying that they are able to defeat me, and even kill me? Perhaps there are a few, but it definitely does not include this mysterious expert here. Someone whose strength is clearly incomparable to me, is absurd enough to think of killing me? That is just mere fantasy. You're waiting for me, and intend to kill me? Zhang Xiao's tone was grave and stern. It was very different from how he usually spoke. No matter what, under no circumstances would he expose his identity completely. Even if it was this stranger he had never met, he would not speak with his original voice. There were always accidents. If this person managed to survive by some stroke of luck. Zhang Xiao had yet to realize that the moment he saw the opponent calmly waiting for himself here, his state of mind had already undergone a minute change. He was no longer certain. The entire pursuit earlier, he had already assumed that the opponent was a prey that was in his clutches. He only needed to strike and he could easily kill him. But seeing how calm the opponent was, to be waiting here patiently, he no longer felt that same thrill of, the enemy is at the end of his rope. He was beginning to feel a little apprehensive. As if, he had already fallen into the trap that the enemy had laid. Zhang Xiao was originally full of confidence. That victory was in his hands. And he was extremely certain that he could easily kill the enemy. But right now, unconsciously, it had turned into, if this person manages to escape. Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1017. Instant Rage. Also, although what Zhang Xiao had said seemed calm and sounds forceful, it had given away his defeated mental state. You're waiting for me, and intend to kill me? This sentence is essentially focused on the fact that the enemy intends to kill himself. If he had arrived full of confidence, it should have been, you're finally not fleeing anymore? Did you choose to wait for your death here? Although the words were similar, but the meaning was worlds apart. Jun Moxie could definitely be counted as a top psychologist in this world. Right now, although Zhang Xiao was masked, from his actions and tone, how could Jun Moxie not tell that this fellow had developed some qualms in his heart? Before we strike, I want to grumble a little. Your speed is truly too slow. No matter how I see it, I can't tell you are a saint Venerable. Jun Moxie's hands were behind his back as he lightly sighed. Using a voice that didn't allow people to gauge his age, he slowly said, earlier, for the sake of waiting for you, I couldn't help but have to keep slowing down so many times, then increase my speed when we were making turns to shake you off. It has really been hard work leading you all the way here. Finally, I've found a suitable location to put an end to this meaningless game of tag. Since the enemy already has some apprehensions, then I shall kick it up a notch. Zhang Xiao's heart jolted. Could it be that this entire journey, it is not because I've chased him until he is tired and exhausted, fleeing for his life, but because the enemy already has schemed to lead me by my nose all the way here? And this choice of place is discovered by chance? Haha. How amusing. When you said this sentence, did you forget how pathetic you were from my pursuit? Practically left with no path ahead for you? With your mere strength, do you really have the right to be saying this? Zhang Xiao laughed loudly. Did you really think, from this entire journey of pursuit, that my strength is only that of what I had displayed? Jun Moxie chuckled. Let me ask you back. If this old man really intends to escape, with my methods, will you be able to stop me from joining the help that is on its way behind? If this old man joins forces with those back up, how confident are you in being able to retreat without sustaining any losses? This. Maybe not. Zhang Xiao was stumped. He was someone with status. He was not willing to speak without a conscience. So he could only reply with a maybe not. In fact, when he had heard this sentence, cold sweat began to trickle down his back. Just from analyzing the opponent's movement technique, this person's prowess is definitely weaker than me. But it wouldn't be that far off. Especially with his movement technique, he is outstanding. If he did not choose to flee for his life and turned around to join the help that was on the way, naturally I won't be able to stop him. Then if Chao Guofeng and Miao Jingyun and the rest caught up, they could join forces to kill me. It is not that difficult for them. This person definitely has the capability to trap me and allow himself to flee easily. If that is the case, even if I want to escape, I'll have to pay a hefty and significant price for it. And more importantly, there is a high chance of exposing my real identity. But why didn't he do that? Could it be that he is this confident and certain that he will be able to defeat me? Zhang Xiao raised his head and cackled. Then why didn't you do that? As to why this old man did not do that, there are two reasons. Jun Moxie turned around. His hands still behind his back. He turned about extremely slowly, gracefully, and calmly. Even Zhang Xiao felt that his act of turning about was very carefree and attractive. Looks like the opponent really has no mental pressure. When this thought appeared in Zhang Xiao's mind, Jun Moxie suddenly increased his speed. His half-turned body had already turned around completely with a whoosh, and he raised his head. A pair of arrogant, condescending, cold-piercing gaze locked into Zhang Xiao's eyes. Jun Moxie's series of actions could be done in a smooth flow. And the amount of each action was done to perfection. With his posture, he aroused Zhang Xiao's doubt. Then, with a couple of sentences, he aroused his suspicions. When Zhang Xiao was asking in an interrogating manner, he suddenly turned around and locked gaze. This was a classic case of gaining the upper hand by showing of strength. Two enemy camps, if one side had doubts in their hearts, they were bound to falter, or at the very least, they wouldn't be at their original peak. And during this period of time, he must have some other thoughts. This was a rare gap between thoughts. If both parties exchanged blows that were mediocre in strength, then it didn't matter. But if both were invincible experts, then this opportunity was extremely rare, and ample enough to become the boundary that separated life and death. In an exchange of blows between experts, especially experts who are of the same level, It is always a bad choice to compete in strength. Even a battle of wits is only considered mid-tier. Only the battle of might is the real battle. Right now, they were battling their might. Their auras. With a couple of sentences and a few actions, Jun Moxie had already gained the upper hand. It seemed easy, but it was full of his precise mental manipulation and timing. Not a single one of them must be lacking. Zhang Xiao instantly felt that there were two dazzling rays of lightning that shot into his own eyes. The moment the opponent's piercing gaze locked onto his, it was like a bolt of lightning. It just came pressuring over. Instantly, he developed an urge to avoid the look. Although Zhang Xiao ultimately did not close his eyes, he still couldn't help but squint a little and moved back slightly. Then, he felt that he was showing his weakest in doing this and retreated that step. All these were subconscious acts. But this subconscious series of action had caused all that might that Zhang Xiao had gathered from his defeated mental state to completely crumble. Zhang Xiao could distinctly see that when faced with this opponent, he had already fallen into a complete disadvantage, with no chance of turning it around. If this situation could not be altered, if he were to battle with an opponent who was on the same level, he could only bring out 80% of his strength. When experts exchanged blows, life and death happened in an instant. The smallest difference was enough to cause a great disparity. Forcefully exchanging blows with a strong opponent when he was not in his full condition was basically giving his life to the opponent's hands. Zhang Xiao was a little anxious now. 2 reasons. False bravado. Ha ha ha. Clearly it is because you are a coward. And afraid of death. Zhang Xiao laughed mockingly. Why must you try to cover up to save your own face? Escaping from me should be something glorious for you. Jun Moxie did not speak and did not rebuke it. He just silently stared at Zhang Xiao. Zhang Xiao realized that there was a look of pity and mockery in the opponent's eyes. Don't look at me like that. The Nike'd mockery in the opponent's eyes caused Zhang Xiao to feel an indescribable fury. And with that yell, Zhang Xiao realized that his emotions were unstable and he quickly controlled them. To be this absurd in your thinking when facing a strong enemy. That was an unforgivable act of asking for death. Can you believe what you just said? If it was not true, you would only be full of disdain. Why would you be this enraged? Jun Moxie's gaze turned cold, with an eerie air of absolute power as he spoke condescendingly. In fact, since I appeared, I had been taking the initiative. And you had never had the strength to alter anything about the situation. What you saw has always been my back view. And you are only worthy of seeing my back. If I did not wish for you to see me from the front, then you'd never be able to see it. What Jun Moxie had just said was completely redundant. He had been fleeing in front, and the enemy had been chasing from the back. He had never once managed to catch up. How could he not only see his back view? If he had seen from the front, then that would mean that he had successfully blocked his way and not pursuing him. As to taking initiative, if someone who was fleeing didn't hold the initiative, then he'd have been caught a long time ago. If this was said earlier, Zhang Xiao will definitely snort and wouldn't be bothered by it. But the effects were greatly different when it was said now, when Zhang Xiao's mind was wavering. Indeed, if the chasing earlier was a competition, the opponent had indeed been taking the initiative the entire time. Even until now, choosing to face off in a place like this, it was also his decision. Otherwise, I'll have to continue chasing all the way. A Saint Venerable expert like me has been led by the nose for almost 3,000 li. Upon thinking here, Zhang Xiao's entire body was covered in cold sweat and his inclination to battle already withered. Stop talking bullshit. Zhang Xiao forcefully controlled his mind and his gaze gradually became sharp. Victory and defeat is never determined from mere talk, but by fists. Let the two of us fight fairly. To be honest, Zhang Xiao no longer dared to listen to the opponent speak anymore. The more the opponent spoke, the more he felt like his confidence was dropping. Why? A saint venerable of his generation doesn't have the confidence to finish hearing what I have to say. Jun Moxie laughed carefreely. The condescending look in his eyes increased. Are you afraid? Afraid that I will crumble your confidence with words? Afraid that you will be unable to fight afterwards and be defeated? Afraid that you will flee and run away before I'm done talking? From the way I see it, you are already unworthy of fighting me. Bullshit. What use is there in talking so much? Show your moves. Zhang Xiao cursed, having his thoughts guessed accurately by Jun Moxie. You are wrong, the battle between the both of us has already started a long time ago. In fact, from the moment the chase began, this battle already began. A warm and smiling expression appeared in Jun Moxie's eyes. This friendly look had made Zhang Xiao feel like he had been used. Although he didn't know why the enemy had suddenly changed the pressuring look in his eyes when he was in full advantage, he only felt slightly relieved. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1018. To Aggrieving. Then, this mysterious expert continued to speak in pitying tone, as if he were guiding him patiently and teaching him. As a saint venerable expert, did you not know that? If you don't even have the guts to finish hearing what I have to say, then it is the same as losing the right to fight me face on. Then after today, no matter how the outcome of today's battle is, your cultivation will never be able to improve. Jun Moxie's hands remained behind his back. But after making this comment, he suddenly took a step forward. His right foot came stepping down on the ground at a high speed, heavy and forceful. The entire ground quaked violently from this endless heaviness. And the gentle look in Jun Moxie's eyes earlier suddenly turned to one that was as sharp as a blade. And what I have yet to finish saying today will become the inner demon that haunts you forever. The sudden shaking of the ground was like a clap of thunder on a clear day, striking the bottom of Zhang Xiao's heart, which jolted from that gaze, like a bolt of lightning that followed right after. The last sentence, every word and pause, was repeated hammering that hammered down harshly in Zhang Xiao's heart. Zhang Xiao suddenly felt his mind being blown. He was startled. Inner demon. From today on, I will never be able to improve. The words left unspoken today will become the inner demon that haunts me forever. Zhang Xiao had a crazed look in his eye, but heavy beads of perspiration formed on his forehead, droplet by droplet. He could still forcefully control the cold sweat earlier. No matter how alarmed he was feeling, he would not show it on his face. But right now, he finally couldn't control it. The other party's words were like the sharpest knife that stabbed into his heart repeatedly. He could not be bothered by it. Zhang Xiao vigor instantly weakened again. This was not because Zhang Xiao was no good. As a saint venerable, he had vast experiences and had seen all sorts of situations. But the other party had a method that he had never thoroughly understood before: psychology. Every single word, action, sigh, gaze of Jun Moxie had dealt significant impact on Zhang Xiao's heart. The moment Zhang Xiao had a moment of waver, the smallest doubt, Jun Moxie would immediately exploit it. There was not a single opportunity he let slip. striking him from all directions. And every single minor action, every distracted gaze, were able to hit the weakness in Zhang Xiao Zhao's mind. If Zhang Xiao Xiao didn't fall into this trap, it would only happen if he were also a transmigrator. Or not. He could also just taken the first move and attack, not giving young Master Jun the opportunity to open his mouth. Otherwise, he definitely would not be able to endure this sort of pressure. It was a pity that Zhang Xiao Xiao was no transmigrator. He also didn't have the guts to just begin attacking upon meeting. Although Jun Moxie advanced in his cultivation at miraculous speed, his real strength was still merely that of a third-level Saint Emperor. Compared to Zhang Xiao Xiao, who was a first-level Saint Venerable, there was still a great disparity. There was a difference of 11 whole levels between them. An exceedingly great disparity. The difference in one level of Xian Qi alone was enough to determine the outcome of the battle. There was no room for luck. What more 11 levels? Even if he had the yin-yang escape, Hongjun Pagoda, and the blood of yellow flame, the most powerful and invincible cheating tools in this world. But these were only able to ensure that his life was not at threat. It was impossible for him to kill Zhang Xiao Xiao in a face-to-face battle. But Jun Moxie had to kill this person today, no matter what. Every single battle with a level that was beyond him is accompanied by the opportunity to break through. Jun Moxie noticed that he hadn't broken through in a long time. There was no other reason other than the fact that he had not started a battle against an opponent that was of a different level from himself for too long. Only in a highly difficult battle, where life and death could happen at any moment. Then, he could feel that level of enlightenment that he usually didn't feel. Then, he could obtain the opportunity to break through. And if Zhang Xiao Xiao didn't die, the threat was too big. Even to Jun Moxie himself he developed an ill presentiment that he was in a precarious state. It was like walking on thin ice to be subjected to the random assassination from a Saint Venerable like this. Jun Moxie definitely didn't wish to suffer this pent-up frustration. So Jun Moxie wanted to make use of all the methods that he could and could not use. Using all sorts of ways to impact Zhang Xiao Zhao's confidence. He must weaken his battling abilities to a certain level before the fight actually begins. Only that way did he stand a chance. Young Master Jun with the Hongjun Pagoda supporting him was full of confidence. The battle had yet to begin and he had already completely forced Zhang Xiao Xiao into a state of dilemma that he could stop. With the current situation, if Zhang Xiao Xiao stopped listening, even if he wouldn't develop any inner demons originally, because of what Jun Moxie had just said, he would end up giving himself an inner demon that didn't exist. What a tragedy. If he really finished hearing it, then his confidence would be crushed by young Master Jun. Then before the battle even unfolded, this Saint Venerable would have completely broken down. If Zhang Xiao Xiao were truly clever and more confident, it was not that difficult to realize that if the opponent was really that powerful, when he was in such a state, he could have just struck. Why waste so much saliva? But it's a pity. He was too clever, viewing the opponent's current act as a cat toying with a mouse. Toying with his opponent as much as he liked. Completely certain of his victory. Zhang Xiao Xiao was so frightened by his way of thinking that he did dare not strike. I want to hear how I am unworthy. Inner demon. Screw your inner demon. Say it. I let you say all you want. Zhang Xiao Xiao was about to vomit blood. Facing this mysterious expert over there was literally facing a devil. This goddamn scoundrel. He is a profound mystery. Gripping on my weak spot. Now I'm stuck. Leaving isn't right. But not leaving isn't right either. If I fall into this agitated state mid-battle, naturally, It is because the opponent is more skilled. And I'm not as good as him. So I have nothing to say about my own defeat. But right now, he has made me so pathetic with a mere exchange of words. If I am defeated like this, then even if I manage to retreat wholly uninjured, it'll be a grieving to the max. Even if it's not the inner demon as that person said, there will definitely be a shadow. You are wrong. It is not that I want to let you hear it. But you urgently need to listen to me. Jun Moxie looked at him haughtily. So now, whether I say it or not, it is extremely important to you. Even if I don't say it, you will still beg me to say it. Because if I do not say it, you will forever be in doubt. For your entire life. What is it do you want? What tricks are you trying to play? Are you going to say it or not? Those two reasons that you have. How long are you going to keep it to yourself? Jun Xie could no longer endure it. I didn't want to hear it. Now I absolutely have to hear it. And it is not because I want to hear it, but I am forced to listen to it. But now, the other party is leaving me hanging. Jun Xie was practically about to vomit blood. Jun Xie had completely not realized that along with the progression of the conversation, they had fallen into an unusual situation. The originally two opposing sides were now in an indescribable state of equilibrium. Jun Moxie scoffed coldly and said, I say it when I wish to. If I don't wish to, I shall not say it. If I want you to hear it, you cannot refuse even if you don't wish to hear it. If I don't wish to tell you, it is useless even if you beg me. Now, you are so pressed for me to guide you. Then all the more I shan't say it. You tell me what sort of rights do you have to demand for me say it? You're not my son. You. Hand over your life. Jun Xie was furious. He leapt and struck at full force. Too infuriating. Too aggrieving. Too frustrating. Too fecking hell. He had finally snapped back to his senses. The opponent was merely toying with him. From start to end, the opponent was never sincere with him. Right now, he had clearly realized that he had been completely defeated in this battle of vigor. In other words, if he were to strike right now, his strength had already been weakened by 40%. Or perhaps, even more. But Jun Xie had no choice but to strike. He could not strike. Because he was already so furious and aggrieved that he was about to explode. If this confrontation continued to drag out, Jun Xie only felt that he would completely lose all his reason from being angered by the enemy. If that happened, then this place today would be where he died, with no chance of turning things around. I've already lost my vigor. If my sensibility is gone also, then. Jun Xie didn't dare to imagine the consequences. Just the mere thought of it was an unimaginable negative influence. So he gathered his remaining courage and struck. But the moment Jun Xie had just risen, the black-robed man opposite calmly flicked his wrists and said, Go back. Boom. A giant ball of fire appeared. The area of 50 zhang radius was instantly engulfed in flames. The instant the fire began to rise, the highest had already reached almost 10 zhang into the sky. Half of the sky had been lit up the color of red. Jun Xie was shocked. While delivering this attack, he had actually thought, this mysterious expert only had been using words to confuse me, but he never really attacked. And in the chase earlier, he had clearly determined that this person's strength was only around the level of a 4th-level Saint Emperor. He only had extremely great movement technique skills. Under this judgment, Jun Xie decisively made the choice to take the gamble, preventing himself from being further weakened. but also increasing the chances of victory. If it was just as he had judged, this mysterious expert was merely a paper tiger. Then, not only would he be able to win, he could completely get rid of his inner demon, killing two birds with one stone. But the opponent's response had caused Zhang Xiao's heart to sink back down. When one's cultivation is of a certain level, he could control a certain amount of the power of heaven and earth. As a saint venerable, he was clear of this. And he could be considered to be an expert in this area. But he had never heard of people being able to control fire out of thin air. Fire was not easy to withstand. The opponent's strength was a mystery. Why would he use it to humiliate himself if they were just regular flames? Zhang Xiao instantly changed his mind. He did a backflip and flew backwards. But at the same time he retreated, there was a sudden shiny column of water that was rushing out from the flames, charging towards him. This column of water was about the thickness of a water jar. Its strength and force were like a great river. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1019. Water and fire of heaven and earth, attacking at the same time. Zhang Xiao's eyes widened in shock. He had never expected that since there was already a huge fire burning, water would randomly shooting out. Caught off guard, he flung his arms out to strike at the air, using the reverberation to change direction midair, avoiding it. Without delivering his blow, he was suddenly forced to retreat by the fire and suddenly attacked by water. Right now, he had already changed directions in the air thrice, and he had yet to land. That water dragon that came out of the flames suddenly exploded, raining all over the intense flames. With sizzling sounds, puffs of thick white mist began to rise. The entire wilderness was suddenly engulfed by the mist. This originally powerful stream of water had all turned into mist in an instant. This originally dark night turned even darker. With the pervading mist, there was a sudden shrill and ghastly wail. The next moment, countless of ghostly figures began to surround him from all directions. Zhang Xiao was alarmed. The enemy had all sorts of unpredictable methods. Right now, Zhang Xiao could already confirm that this person was the same mysterious expert that had intruded into the underground world of the Zhan family. Because he had heard Zhan Tu and Zhan Xiao mention that that person had this sort of mysterious ability to control fire. And the old ancestors' 1,000 ghosts devourer insects which he painstakingly bred were all ruined under the unusual fire of this person. The old ancestors' 1,000 ghosts devourer insect was a treasured bug that had been verified to be unafraid of anything. But it still couldn't defend against the mysterious flames used by this person. This was also the main reason why Zhang Xiao didn't dare to force his way through the sea of flames with merely his Xian Qi protecting him. The other party could move as he wished in the underground world of the Zhan manor. Zhan Xiao and Zhan Tu couldn't even do anything about him. They didn't even brush against his shadow. And under the extreme, high level of security, he killed Zhan Tianji and destroyed the entire place. And left carefreely. What sort of prowess was this? Zhang Xiao felt even more timid with just this thought. Putting himself in the other party's shoes, had it been him, it would be impossible to do something like this. The moment this thought popped up, Zhang Xiao's mind began to waver. His cowardice towards this battle began to increase greatly, and he even developed thoughts of fleeing for his life. Zhang Xiao, whose mind was full of alarm, realized that being in midair, danger was everywhere. He scoffed angrily and forcefully activated 1,000 Caddy Drop to force himself onto the ground. Under these sort of circumstances, Forcefully using Xian Qi to use the 1000 caddy drop is the same as voluntarily making your Xian Qi go in anticlockwise. Even a Saint Venerable expert would sustain significant injuries, especially when Zhang Xiao was on the verge of exhaustion. His foundations had suffered damage. But Zhang Xiao right now had no other choice but to proceed in this manner. As someone with vast battle experience, he knew that if the enemy made use of this current situation to increase his attacks, his circumstances would rapidly turn dire. So he must immediately set foot back on the ground, even if there was a risk of internal injuries. By gaining a stable foothold, he would ensure his own safety first. Everything else could be decided later. Zhang Xiao's body began to drop from midair like a boulder. In the process, he did not even meet with any attacks. This sort of situation was beyond Zhang Xiao's expectations. He had already made preparations to first come in contact with the ground no matter what, even if it meant he had to sustain injuries. Following which, something even more unexpected happened. With a pu, Zhang Xiao's entire body sank into the ground. Originally, he descended, and the moment his feet touched the ground, he would use reverberations from the ground to immediately change the energy flow, then gain stable footing. Then, he would watch out for an opportunity before planning what to do next. But Zhang Xiao never imagined that this descent had become as though he had fallen off a cliff. There was no feeling of landing on ground. He had never come into contact with the ground. So how could he borrow strength? I didn't jump that high just now, right? For the sake of attacking, I had only leapt about 8 zhangs up. I should have landed by now. But right now, from the feeling of this, I have already descended for over 100 zhang. Why haven't my feet touched the ground yet? Zhang Xiao's mind was completely in a mess now. Even if he was a Saint Venerable, he was ultimately only human. Being caught off guard, even with the protective Xian Qi over his body, falling down from over 100 zhang would cause him to sustain significant injuries. Zhang Xiao growled and forcefully used his Xian Qi to gain some control over the direction, using all his force to overcome the strength of his own descend and float upwards, changing direction and shooting back up. But suddenly, rumble. Rumble. A series of rumbling noises of the earth cracking began to ring out. Countless mud, with stones, roots, and muddy water came pouring down from above. Zhang Xiao was startled. The chilling feeling coming from above his head caused him to clearly understand that these were actual objects. And definitely not illusions. The enemy has already laid his trap here. Just looking from the depth and intricacies of the arrangements of this trap, it was not something that could be done within a fortnight. But there were too many unexplainable questions. How did the opponent predict my actions? I had only confirmed to carry out the mission in the afternoon today. And the location was also by chance. How could I just so coincidentally fall into the trap? This is too incomprehensible. Zhang Xiao was filled endless confusion and bewilderment. Countless rocks and mud fell into the valley. When it hit Zhang Xiao, he realized to his horror that the water that was caught between the soil and stones had already turned from cool to icy cold. This meant, with the continuous rain of debris, the water had turned colder and colder. Finally, it turned into a layer of thick ice, completely sealing Zhang Xiao within it. And it was still falling down continuously. The ice heap began to become heavier, so it naturally got bigger and bigger. Zhang Xiao was completely sealed by the ice. He was so angry that he was about to vomit blood, but he couldn't do anything about it. Even if he really wished to vomit blood, he couldn't. Because his entire body was frozen in ice, and his mouth was no exception. He had never landed on the ground, so he did not manage to borrow any strength. Now that he was completely frozen in the ice, he had no way of changing his chi. Now, due to this series of impact, that last bit of air he had was running out. As a Saint Venerable, even if the earth-penetrating hand Zhan Xiao really had divine and godly methods, in a situation like this, he could only wait for this heap of ice to land on the ground. After his feet has landed on the ground and the ice seal was shattered, then could he be able to change his chi, and the real frustrating this was. Everywhere else is already frozen in ice. But why was there still nothing by my foot? This meant that he was still free falling. It'll be good even if I have some ice beneath my feet. Instead, his upper body had already turned into a giant ice heap and was pressing down on him faster and faster. Zhan Xiao really wished to yell in horror. What the feck is going on with everything about everything here? But right now, he couldn't even open his mouth, it was completely frozen. Right now, Jun Moxie was in the mist above. Both his palms were moving about, and bamboo poles were shooting out from his hands. In front and on the left, he had already laid out a thick layer of them. Every single bamboo was positioned in a unique fashion. Some were upright, some were slanted. It was full of eccentricity. At the same time, the yellow glow on his left foot was shining, and there was a dark blue glow on his right. The canyon and mountain range on both sides were flowing like a river, forming an exceptionally powerful landslide that gushed continuously at full speed into that giant pit that hand appeared. The landslide may be powerful, but it did not have the slightest effect on the bamboo poles stuck into the ground. Yet another bizarre situation. It had already gone beyond the laws of physics. Finally, Jun Moxie heaved a sigh of relief, sticking the last bamboo pole into that giant pit. Instantly, the heavens and earth began to shake, as if all the wind and clouds were gathering here at this moment. Vast, boundless dark clouds began to gather overhead. Jun Moxie clapped his palms. The entire valley and everything vanished with the sound of this clap. Only a boundless sea of dense, heavy mist remained. Even the sound of the earth cracking had also vanished. In the silence of the night, not a single sound was heard. Only a few birds flew off from a big tree far away. Looking over in confusion, they flapped their wings and flew away. To be able to even isolate noises, the formations had been laid. The mysterious sky disorientating formation, and the 9 firmament lightning attraction formation. Jun Moxie had complete confidence that even Zhan Xiao, a Saint Venerable, would lose at least 2 layers of skin under this combinations of formations he had laid. The clouds in the midair clearly started brewing. Strokes of lightning cut across them. The stifling air of an impending storm filled the world. Jun Moxie could finally heave a sigh of relief, and finishing all the actions, he panted heavily to catch his breath. All the setups here were the reason why he had chosen this place as the battlefield. 2 tall mountains would be a great aid for using the power of earth. And the ravines of this place were extremely low, but the water level was relatively high. With a little bit of conduction, he would be able to use the power of water. And this area is rather barren and lacking in trees and was considerably arid, so there was no challenge in using the power of fire. And the last advantage was that it is relatively flat, so it was the best choice for setting up formations. The world is always flawed, and it is difficult to find something perfect. The only thing lacking about this place is that because of the power of water and fire, this place I picked is slightly lacking in trees. So I can't fully utilize the power of wood, but I'm sure these will be enough for that fellow to enjoy. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1020. Struck by lightning. He first used several methods to erode Zhang Xiao's confidence layer by layer, drove his anger up with words, and forced him to attack when he was not fully prepared. Then, when he was still concerned with the other things, he was forced off the ground by the raging fire, rising into the air. After that, he conjured a water dragon to force him back. Then, he steamed the water into mist to cover the entire area, forming a screen to cause Zhang Xiao to temporarily lose his sight. Finally, the real trap, the power of earth, exploded forth, burying Zhang Xiao deep into the ground. Using this time, he quickly finished the huge array he was making, in preparation to beat the drenched dog senseless. The mysterious sky disorientating formation was, as its name implied, a beguiling type formation. It was capable of causing anyone who fell into it to completely lose their sense of direction, not even knowing which way was up and down. And no matter how they walked, they would not be able to come out of the formation. Whichever way they turned, they would only be roaming endlessly in a loop. In even simpler words, everything the person saw inside the formation would simply be illusions created based on diversionary tricks. Although this was only a beguiling formation, it was a mysterious technique that came from the Hongjun Pagoda. How could it be ordinary? The unique thing about this formation was that, unlike normal formations, it did not rely on geographical formations and other treasures to set up. Instead, one only needed to channel the essence chi of heaven and earth into it to maintain the formation. The greatest benefit of this formation was that as long as the ability of the formation master was great enough, the formation could be maintained endlessly. However, Jun Moxie's abilities were still very limited. With his current abilities, he could only maintain the formation for 3 days and 3 nights at best. If not for his lack of strength, just this formation alone would be enough to trap Zhang Xiao until the latter died. Of course, this formation was still completely enough to deal with Zhang Xiao. But if it were used against someone even more powerful, it would be useless. Because the higher one's Xian Qi cultivation was, the more intuitive they were to heaven-earth spiritual Qi and could manipulate it much easier. If the person trapped could move more heaven-earth spiritual Qi than the amount inside the formation would not have much effect. For example, if he wanted to use this formation against the 9 Nether 14th young master, Jun Moxie was quite sure that the latter would be able to jump out from it in an instant. But although Zhang Xiao's strength was much higher than young Master Jun, it was not enough to break out of the formation, and he could only remain inside helplessly for 3 days. With young Master Jun's mediocre strength, he could only trap his opponent for 3 days. However, the ultimate goal of this fight was to kill the enemy. After setting down the mysterious sky disorientating formation and ensuring that his opponent could not escape, he immediately began setting up another 9 firmament lightning attraction formation and fused it together with the mysterious sky disorientating formation. This second formation was actually the really killing stroke. As long as Zhang Xiao created a large enough commotion inside the formation, it would immediately stir up the unique power of heaven and earth in the formation, and with that interaction, a chain reaction would begin, and large amounts of lightning would fall from the sky to deal with this guy. In other words, the effect of this second formation was a man-made lightning tribulation. Although that would cause the power of heaven and earth in the mysterious sky disorientating formation to deplete quicker, dissipating it even faster, but it could still deal a great amount of damage to the enemy. Of course, Jun Moxie did not overreach, trying to set up ultimate killing formations like the 10,000 tribulations killing formation that would guarantee the death of anyone who stepped in. Firstly, there wasn't sufficient time, And secondly, his cultivation was far from being enough to set up such formations. The thick white mist rumbled and spread out, covering more and more area. Gradually, the entire woods were completely covered. At this time, the ground suddenly shook heavily, and a large crack slowly appeared on the ground. Jun Moxie's eyes flashed, completely unfazed as he stood in the air. With a wave of his hand, the blood of yellow flame appeared in his grip. At this time, Jun Xie had finally managed to find a small breakthrough, because he could clearly feel that his feet had touched the ground. This kind of relieving feeling of having his foot back on the ground was so amazing that this Saint Venerable almost cried aloud. But at this time, his nose and mouth were already blocked with frozen ice. His xian qi was stuck in his throat, and the most important thing to do for now was to catch his breath. In order to do that, he needed to shatter the ice around his body. With his feet on the ground, he borrowed the energy around him. His xian qi sped up, sinking into his dantian. After gathering all his strength, a loud bang burst out from him as the ice and earth around him were blasted away. Although he was still below ground level, he had already blasted off a small space for himself. Jun Xie gasped and swallowed in 2 large gulps of air. Although the air around him was heavy and humid, filled with a musky stench, this feeling of being able to breathe again caused Jun Xie to feel as if this damp and stinky air was as fresh and fragrant as the air in a garden. If it were any longer, this Saint Venerable might really have suffocated to death. As long as one was a living person, they would definitely need to breath. A Saint Venerable was a human as well. There was nothing strange about needing to breath. So why did young Master Jun not continue using the power of earth to suffocate Jun Xie to death directly? There was no helping it. Jun Moxie's current abilities with the power of earth were only to this level. Also, even if he tried to trap Jun Xie underground until the latter died of suffocation, when a powerful Saint Venerable was about to die, he would definitely detonate his core and self-implode his body. With such a powerful explosion counteracting his power of earth, Jun Moxie would definitely receive a huge backlash. With his current strength, even if he didn't die from the backlash, he would still be heavily injured. Since he had better plans in place, he would naturally not resort to such an extreme method. As Jun Xie finally caught his breath, he instantly felt endless strength surging through his body. With a roar of rage, he unhesitatingly unleashed the technique he was known for, earth-penetrating hand. A person's real name may be wrong, but their nicknames would never be obtained wrongly. After having lived for several thousand years, this was the first time that Jun Xie felt like he'd truly lived up to his name, using this technique from underground and covered in earth. What was he if not the earth-penetrating hand? At this dreary moment where he was buried under the earth, Jun Xie strangely thought of another person. Somebody who was equally famous as him, heaven-penetrating palm. He wondered when that fellow would also get the moment where he felt such an intimate attunement to his nickname. For that to happen, he would probably need to be stuck in the 9 heavens. In that case, that fellow's situation should be even worse than him. The moment the earth-penetrating hand struck out, the stones broke apart and the ground shook heavily. Jun Xie fought madly, smashing a path through all the way. At this point, he could no longer tell how deep he had sunk. But from his guess, it should at least be over 100 zhang deep. At such a depth, it was difficult for even a Saint Venerable to charge out in one stroke. If he tried to bash his way out through another direction, it would be much harder to do so against the ground that hadn't been loosened yet. Thus, his only choice was to try to climb back from the path that he fell in previously. Jun Moxie looked at the continuously shaking ground, and the white mist in the air rumbling as if something was boiling. A cold smile appeared on his face. Quickly come up. There's an even more sumptuous feast waiting for you up here. Soon. With a heaven-shaking roar of rage, Jun Xie burst out of the ground with soil and loose stones all over him. In the instant that he came out, Jun Moxie clearly saw this earth-penetrating hand suck in a deep and emotional breath. Following that, his body shot upwards rapidly like a rocket. After charging for a distance, Jun Xie discovered that he was still inside the mist. Furthermore, the mist here had already reached an extreme level. Even with his eyesight, he couldn't see through it at all, and it was as if he had turned blind. His first thought was, I must get out of the range of this strange mist immediately. This is definitely a setup of the enemy. Staying here would be equivalent to being in the territory of the enemy. Without pausing to think further, he directly rushed upwards. As long as he could dash out of this mist and reach a high enough vantage point, he would easily be able to determine his direction and escape. Right now, Jun Xie no longer had the slightest thought of killing that black-robed man. It wasn't that he didn't wish to do that anymore. It's that he didn't dare and simply couldn't harbor such a dangerous thought anymore. To think that such mysterious methods actually existed in this world. He hadn't even seen his opponent's weapons or fists, and he'd already nearly lost his life. This encounter was definitely the most dangerous thing he'd ever encountered in his life. If he acted rashly and wasn't careful, he might really lose his life here. Jun Xiao's arrogance had all but disappeared. But in just a short moment, he realized that he was wrong. The previous incident wasn't the most dangerous in his life. Because this was. Looking at the predicament he was in, Jun Xie truly felt like breaking down and crying aloud. His eyes were widened with disbelief, and his face was filled with shock and horror. He truly could not believe it. As he charged upwards for a long time, the mist finally showed signs of thinning, and he could even faintly see the outside world. However, after taking a single look, his heart dropped. And he felt that it would not have been better if he hadn't seen anything. Right in front of him were a few streaks of exceedingly dazzling lightning, arching across the thick clouds above him. The moment he came out, all the lightning started to converge and struck towards him. Dear Lord Ah! Jun Xiao's body was nearly scared stiff. As a Saint Venerable, the power of the lightning tribulation was something that he was exceedingly familiar with. Even a Saint Venerable was simply a slightly stronger ant in the face of a lightning tribulation. Jun Xie did not stop to consider anything as he immediately gathered all his xian qi above his head. The lightning bolts struck exceedingly quickly, to a point where he barely had the time to lift his arms. Hong! Jun Xie screamed wretchedly, and his entire body grew numb. The black cloth around his head was instantly vaporized. His hair band was nowhere to be found, and all his hair stood up on their ends, curled and fried, pointing directly to the heavens. This story will be continued to chapter 1021. For those of you who are not subscribed yet, please subscribe. The interesting and best stories will be updated. See you again in the next episode.